All right, so you guys are in week 7. We're almost done with the class, 2 weeks left, so it's really important to get all your work in. This week we are learning about exponential and logarithmic functions. So we're looking at chapter 5. We're actually going through everything in chapter 5. So it's basically about exponential and logarithmic functions and their graphs. We'll be looking at properties of logarithms, equations, where we will be solving equations with exponential and logarithmic functions, and then we will be looking at models, word problems that involve exponents and logarithms. So this kind of material, I mentioned this in the course introduction, all the different things that you'll be looking at in this class, but it's useful for bacteria growth, population growth, radiocarbon dating, pH, earthquake magnitude, interest on bank accounts, estimating time of death, and this is just a small subset of everything that exponential and logarithmic functions are used for. So out of the sections that you're learning this week, you will be refreshing your factoring skills or, reinforcing them. We will be talking about asymptotes again. You'll be solving linear and quadratic equations in addition to these exponential and logarithmic equations. You'll be graphing, and then you'll need to understand the properties of exponents because we'll be working with them in terms of exponential equations, hence exponent. And the properties of logarithms are like the reverse of the exponent, so to speak. So those properties will come back to you. So this week you have your week 7 discussion, your week 7 ungraded practice assignment, the week 7 assignment, which is the last assignment for the class, and then your week 7 quiz. So let's take a look at the discussion, and this is a fun one. So this is going to involve doing some research. So you need to do research on important constants in mathematics. You're going to be learning about the constant E, and you guys, pretty much everybody knows about pi, so you're going to be looking into other constants. And so a good constant has a specific name. It's not just a number, but it actually has a name. Like pi actually has a name. It's not coming to my mind. I don't think it's Archimedes' constant. I think that's the square root of 2. No, that's Pythagorean. Maybe it is Archimedes' constant, which is the other name for pi. E is called Euler's number. So there's actually like a name for these other than just the number itself. And so that's what makes it a constant, something special. And they're often used in mathematical formulas. So they'll pop up in various formulas, and so that's why they're special. So it's not just any random number, but they actually have a meaning behind them and a special name. So you need to do research on a mathematical constant. So again, it's going to have a name. So just researching a number like 0, 1, or 7, those are not special constants. So those would not be the kinds of things that you're going to look up. When you do your research, write down all of your sources. I recommend that you write your post the day after you do your research, so that way you can rely on what you remembered rather than copying and pasting, because that will help you avoid plagiarism. So after you do your research, you do want to post. You need to summarize what you learned, not copy and paste. Summarize, explain. Talk like I talk to you guys. Explain. I am not just reading word for word the discussion prompt. I'm explaining it to you, summarizing it, rephrasing it. That's what you need to do in your post. So you need to make sure that you talk about the history of the constant, like who discovered it, when was it discovered, who named it, some facts about it. Some of them, there are some really interesting facts, like there are some constants that actually have changed over time. They're not the same value they were like 20 years ago. You want to talk about how is it used or applied, where does it show up in the world, is it there a separate equation, how that sort of thing. And of course, use all those references, write down all those references that you used in your research. So to help you get started, I actually have a list here of constants. These are all good constants to use because these are understandable. There's information out here that makes these constants something that you can actually understand. There are some constants out there that are beyond what you may be able to comprehend on your level of mathematics, and so you want to be careful to pick something that makes sense, that you're like, oh, okay, I understand what this is saying. If you pick something you don't understand, then you should pick something else, because If you're trying to research something you don't understand, then you often fall into the trap of copy and pasting, which means you're plagiarizing. So the best way to avoid plagiarizing is to research something and make sure you're actually understanding the material. So I suggest picking from this list. Of course, you could go beyond this list, but there's more than enough constants here to give you a great start. So assignments, your ungraded practice assignment is chapter 5 and review exercises. So I tried, there was no pattern to these really because I'm just picking and choosing. So unfortunately there's no shortcut to writing them, but those are all the problems that will help you study for the final exam, which is going to have this material. And then you've got your graded week 7 assignment. So you guys should be used to this by now. You have 10 questions. Make sure you're showing your work. So make sure that everything's understandable. And now let's take a look at the quiz. So this is your last quiz because next week you will have the final exam. So just like all the other quizzes, this one is 10 multiple choice questions. You have 1 hour. You need to submit your work to a Dropbox, and you could get partial credit in the Dropbox based off of your submitted work. If you are having any problems with the quiz or have any questions about whether you got partial credit or not, please reach out to your instructor. I am unable to override anything that your instructor does. It is their prerogative for how they grade, and so they are the ones to reach out to if you are having issues with something on the quiz or the grading. So the topics covered are topics from week 6. So the quiz is on rational functions. And it's basically very similar to the assignment. You're going to be analyzing rational functions. So you'll be looking at the graphs. You'll be trying to figure out the domain, what the asymptotes are, what the intercepts are, what the zeros are. So try to do things very similar to the assignment, try to find problems that are similar to the assignment, and that should help you be successful for the quiz. So review your week 6 assignment. Basically, I just said all of that. And I do have some practice problems here on rational functions, finding their asymptotes, what's excluded. I did find out that IXL has a limit on how many problems you can do a day if you have a free account. So just keep in mind that if you run out of problems, that's a daily limit. So you should be able to get back in tomorrow or the next day and continue working on their problems. So the suggested schedule. So let me zoom in here. I suggest starting your reading on Thursday, take Wednesday off, that sort of thing, because you've been working hard. So do a section a day, take notes, watch the videos, and then I've picked out the different problems from the review exercises. So the first section really has a lot of problems, but a lot of it is graphing, so those should go pretty quickly. But then you start getting into only 5 or 6 problems a day. So it's really not a lot of practice problems at all when you spread it out. And then the assignment is actually backwards. So problem 1 goes with 5.4, but then the rest go in order. So you actually, if you want to do these in order, you'd start with 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then go back to 1. And then, just review, study for your quiz. And that's about it. So if you guys have any questions on content issues, you can email me, you can give me a call. If you have any questions on grading, wanting to know where your grade is at, you want to take a look at your weighted grade. The weighted grade is the lowest possible grade you can get in the class. It assumes that everything from this point on is not turned in. So if you look at your weighted grade, you want your weighted grade to be at a minimum of a 60 in order to pass the class. Now you have 2 weeks left, so you're not going to be at a 60 right now, but that is your goal. You want that to be at a minimum of 60 to pass. And so if you are like down in the 20s, you probably have a lot of missing work and may want to work on that. Most people should be in the 30s and 40s at this point. So if your weighted grade is below that, then you might want to get working on some of that missing work. If you had questions on specific assignments and how they were graded, again, go back to your instructor. So that's all I have for you guys. And I'll have one more live session next Wednesday, which will be about week 8. That one's a good one to attend because I'll be talking about the final exam. And then from there, you'll be moving on. You will probably be moving on to pre-calc, and I will not be, unless you happen to move to an even term, I will not be involved in the pre-calc. So there, you're sort of, you're graduating on. So, all right. So I'm gonna pop on off, get this saved and all that good stuff, and share this out. So you guys have a great night. Bye.